And so today I want to talk about this term leadership. Many of us are leaders in the sense that we are leaders by title. We've been given a title of leadership. So you might be somebody on your team or in your department or I know there are many CEOs and people that listen to this podcast that are literally the leader of their entire organization or company. And so you might be the leader in title. Leadership is not about title. And so there are plenty of people that have the title of leadership, but then absolutely don't lead. But today I want to just focus in on at least 3 leadership actions that I've observed are really needed right now in the world.
Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced. The best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world.
Hey everybody, Jason Barger here, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. I'm excited you are back. Whether this is your first time on the podcast, welcome, and welcome to Season 4. I'm glad you're here and glad you're joining in wherever that may be. If you have been a loyal listener and somebody who's been with us from the beginning, from Season 1, 2, and 3, thank you. Glad you're back. We have received so much great feedback and positive mojo over the last the beginning of this podcast and first Seasons 1, 2, and 3, and are excited to be carrying that momentum forward into Season 4. So wherever you're listening or however you're here, thanks for being back. If you're somebody who's new to the podcast, I invite you to go back, listen to some of the old episodes. They're amazing interviews and thought leaders that have joined me in this discussion, and certainly, hopefully, nuggets of thought and inspiration, but also actionable things that will be valuable to wherever you might be in your own journey. As always, it's my hope with this podcast that this is a place for you to step back, for you to think, for you to breathe, and then also to breathe a little oxygen into yourself personally, to help this be a place where your mind and heart is engaged. And so a weekly, few minutes for you to step back, to get your mind right, to think about some things that hopefully resonate and help you reflect on your own journey, where you are as an individual human, but certainly as you serve the people around you on your team, as a leader in whatever organization that you or department or organization or company that you're a part of, and certainly beyond that with the friends and the family members in the community that you're a part of. I hope this is a place that helps you step back, engage your mind and heart, and then think about what intentional action might look like for you. Thank you. Thank you for everybody. I want to just quickly say this again. Thank you to everybody that takes the time, obviously, to listen, but also the people that are subscribing, that are sharing this with the people in their life and across their team and organization of, hey, these are some conversations that add value to me and hopefully us, and inviting them to join these conversations. And of course, thank you to everybody that takes the time to just rate whatever podcast platform you're on. Thank you for hitting 5 stars, of course, for leaving a positive review. All of those ways help amplify these messages further in the world. That's the way the algorithms work, whether we like it or not, but they just help share them further into the world. So thank you to everybody that takes the time to do that, because the mission and purpose of this podcast is to put good stuff out of the world that helps us all think about with intentionality the type of leaders, the type of people, and the cultures that we're creating with the people around us. So we know, thank you for doing that, and I'm excited that you're back today. For today's conversation, I just want to talk about this idea We understand that over the last year, and beyond, of course, there have always been challenges in the world. But the last year has been quite challenging in so many different ways. It's been strange. It's been something that many of us have never experienced in our life and in our careers. The level of uncertainty, the level of, again, all of these things that have been swirling in the world that just seem out of our control. And yet we also realize that the challenges aren't over. That, the world and business and in life and in our families and friends and just mentally making ourselves through the world and through everything that's swirling around us, we know that the challenges aren't over. There are going to be new obstacles and things that show up along the path, but there are also opportunities for us to grow, opportunities for us to innovate and think about doing things differently, and then certainly for opportunities for all of us to be a part of progress and to think about what is our response to the challenges that are around us and how do we bring our mind and heart to help stimulate progress and help align people and be a part of solutions and focus on what is within our control. And so there's still a lot of work, obviously, for all of us to do, but thank you for then allowing yourself to step back and to get yourself in that mindset of how can we be a part of the change that we want to see in the world. And so today I want to talk about this term leadership. And again, on this podcast and many of the different episodes that you can go back and listen to, when I talk about leadership, I talk about many of us are leaders in the sense that we are leaders by title. We've been given a title of leadership. So you might be somebody on your team or in your department or I know there are many CEOs and people that listen to this podcast that are literally the leader of their entire organization or company. And so you might be the leader in title, but as we also know that leadership is not about title. And so there are plenty of people that have the title of leadership, but then absolutely don't lead. And yet the way I talk about leadership is whether or not you have the title or not, I want you to be reminded that leadership, that we are all leaders in the sense that somebody is always watching what we're doing, which I don't mean that in the creepiest sense, but the reality is that people around us are watching how we respond, how we show up to every situation. And we are leaders in the sense that many of the people around us are taking cues from how we respond and how we show up to the things along our path. So no matter what your role is in your family, in your life, and in the team and organization that you serve, we're all leaders in that sense. And we know that in the world right now, the world and our team and organization, no matter how perfect you think it might be, whatever great organization you happen to work for, none are perfect. And in the world we're in right now, leadership, responding with positivity, with engagement, with reaching out and connecting to people, to seeking solutions and help moving people towards progress is needed everywhere. No matter what your role, no matter what your industry, no matter what team or organization you might be a part of. And as we've been witnessing throughout the year, and certainly all the challenges that have been on our plates lately in the last year, there have been all kinds of different examples in front of us of what people, some people that in positions of leadership or power, across organizations and government and just in our communities, there have been examples all over the place in front of us that we need to learn from and to be thinking about, examples of what not to do and also to be reminded of what have been those heroic and what have been those powerful and compelling examples of leadership that have actually brought people together, that have helped people cut through the distractions and find clarity around mission and purpose, and then have helped lead to finding solutions and action that begins to move us through the challenges and into a new future that we all desperately want together. And so I've talked about in the past that the term leadership has been hijacked because there are many people that are in roles of leadership but that aren't leading and or giving us examples of not leadership that lifts people up and engages people and connects people and helps us stay focused on a mission greater than ourselves and find those solutions and those actions. And yet it gets confusing for people. And so part of the work that I believe and that I'm certainly actively involved in with many teams and organizations is helping them step back and redefine, when we say this term leadership, what does authentic and compelling and influential leadership really look like in action and behavior? And let's get clear on that within our teams, within our organizations, within our families, our communities, our world, so that we can begin to seek solutions and find ways to connect and stimulate progress together. And so the most authentic, compelling, inspiring, influential, and effective leaders are those ones that are practicing what I refer to as 21st century leadership, which are there's many attributes that are about bringing people together and finding those commonalities to help us stimulate progress and seek those solutions together. And so, every leader out there, anyone who's listening to this, a team lead, a department head, a coach, a parent, a community leader, there are many attributes of leadership that will help us respond so that those people around us are compelled to join us in the effort of bringing, solutions and connecting and engaging people in progress. But today I want to just focus in on at least 3 leadership actions that I've observed are really needed right now in the world. These aren't the only leadership attributes or characteristics. Again, I talk a lot about 21st century leadership and a number of different attributes and characteristics that we need to be developing in ourselves and throughout our teams and organizations in order to have cultures that are really supporting and bringing out the best of each other so that we can utilize our strengths to serve a mission greater than ourselves. But today I want to focus on just 3 leadership attributes and characteristics that every group of humans on the planet need right now. I have no doubt that there will be time in the near future, I'm not sure when, but where there will be power in congregating again, power in bringing your whole team together, your entire company and organization together in one space for that powerful keynote speech, that discussion that has to happen as a team, an entire organization about leadership and culture and mindset. But until then, we are in a virtual world. And so if I can add value to your team, your company, or organization through a virtual keynote speech, or just helping your team and organization have the conversation that's the currency for change that you need to be having internally, I hope you'll track us down and let us know how we can be helpful at jasonvbarger.com. And the first one is, the characteristic of leadership is to listen. The first one is, what's needed right now in the world and has been needed, and certainly within teams and organizations that I'm seeing all over the place, is to listen. That the best leaders, teams, and entire organizations have realized the importance of taking a posture of listening. Not just a posture, but to take time to step back, take a deep breath, and realize, hold on a second, let's not try to rush into this maze. You don't solve a maze by rushing through. We need to come in and we need to actually take the approach of listening to each other, to the people on our team, to the people on the front lines, to the people around us. And so the best leaders are taking this approach of listening and setting out many teams and organizations, and again, the ones that I am supporting and working with are really, hopefully we are always in the practices of, as leaders, of listening to our people and trying to understand and building relationships and rapport with everyone. But at a time when there's been so much swirling in the world and so much negativity and blame and easily distracted, attention, many teams and organizations have needed to then make sure that they have a listening strategy. How are we going to intentionally go out and listen to our people and create an environment where we're listening to them, where they feel heard, they feel valued, they feel appreciated, and then together we're helping to find solutions and recognize, what is within all of our control to stimulate progress. So all of us, all people, we all need to be heard. The leaders too, but certainly the people that we are leading. Everybody has a need to feel heard, to feel valued, and to know that their voice matters. And right now, the best leaders are creating space for listening individually, so that we can help people navigate through everything that is swirling around them, but also listening as an entire team and organization to say, all right, and then being able from that listening, then we can begin to respond and pivot and say, all right, from this that we are learning, where is it that we need to go? So one characteristic of leadership, not the only characteristic, but one of the foundational things that has always been, but is certainly needed right now, is as leaders, we need to listen. The other thing that leaders right now need to do, the second thing I would point out for today, is that leaders need to also be willing to utter the phrase, I don't know. I don't know. 3 words that we don't hear nearly enough from leaders is I don't know. Unfortunately, somehow along our path, we got confused as if the leader has to have all the answers. That what it meant to lead is that means that you have to be the one that has all the answers. And that confusion has then led to leaders that share misinformation, that leaders that jump to conclusions or giving answers prematurely because they feel pressure to have all the answers, and yet by sharing misinformation, or by jumping to conclusions or prematurely, giving an answer to something that they don't have a grasp on yet because they haven't maybe fully listened or understood what's happening, the changes that are taking place in that has created a whole lot of confusion, and then certainly has deteriorated trust and clarity around, well, where are we going and why are we going within the teams and organizations. And so that, lack of clarity creates confusions. And so one of the most powerful things a leader today can do is be vulnerable. And even in that exact moment when someone asks us a question, or we're in the midst of a meeting or at an entire annual meeting or big environment, that it's okay that if we don't know, is to be able to share that, because many of the things that we're dealing with in the world right now do not have direct answers. Some of them do. Some of them have answers, and there's clarity around, hey, here's what we need to do, and here's the next action. And obviously, when we know that and we have that, and we need to have the clarity of this is where we are and this is what we're doing, we need to be willing to share that. But in a time when things might be a little gray or blurry, or I don't have all the information, the most effective leaders are the ones that are able to look at their people in the eyes and say, you know what, that's a great question. I don't know that right now. It doesn't mean I'm not going to I'm always not going to know it, but I don't know. And in fact, I don't know, but let me think about that a little bit. And in fact, or let's you and I go on the journey to try to find the answer to that. And as I have time to think, or we have time to explore, or that's a great question, our leadership team is going to wrestle with that, or let's make sure we hold on to that at our next team meeting, or whatever that might be, whatever environment you're in. And then I'll get back to you. The most effective and compelling leaders right now are the ones that are able to say, hey, I'm not sure about that question, but here's how we're going to go on the hunt together to find a solution. And this is what you can expect from me, is we will come back to that question, and you and I will find a solution together. But in this very moment, I don't know yet. And that is one of the characteristics and traits right now that many teams, organizations, communities need, is the ability to say, I don't know, but that doesn't mean I won't always know. We're going to go on the search to go find it. And then the third one, that the characteristic or trait of leadership that is needed right now in the world that I just want to focus on today, again, not the only characteristic, but the third that I would point out today, is that the most effective leaders and team cultures that are not only listening and being vulnerable to say, I don't know, but let's go on the journey to find the solutions. The other thing they're doing is to realize the mindset of including. That if the past year has taught us nothing, then hopefully it has taught us to widen the circle of who is included. Who is included? The best leaders are going to celebrate diversity of thought, meaning a room of people that might think a little differently, but that realize that in that diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of background, and they realize that we are also in a participatory world. And so rather than be siloed and disconnected and or just in groups that are factions with only their self-interest, the best leaders are the ones that are able to bring people together to celebrate a diversity of thought, of experience, and also to say together then, how can we bring everybody into participation? So, because we are all ambassadors for the culture that we want to create. And so we all need to be participating in the creation, in the conversation of whatever it is that we're doing next. So we need to have, this participatory world is one where the most effective teams, groups, and organizations are mobilizing. They're mobilizing the collective hearts of their people. And they're bringing them into conversation. They're bringing them into, hey, we're all a part of this. And so let's make sure that when we're having that important discussion around the board table, that in discussion important team meeting, that company-wide discussion, let's make sure that the right people are around the table, and that table is inclusive, is participatory, and that we're taking advantage of in the very best sense. We're bringing out the best of what diversity of thought, of experience, of background brings us so that we can find better solutions together. Diversity, inclusion, equity, all of those things are about creating a wider circle. And our job as leaders right now, and always has been, but right now, again, if the last year has taught us nothing else, hopefully it has taught us that we need to listen. We also need to make sure that we are willing to say, I don't know, but let's go on the journey together to find solutions. And then when we do have a next action, let's get clear and be willing to share it. But let's also make sure that we are inclusive. We are including the right people in those discussions. And together we are saying, let's go on the journey together. Our job as leaders is to engage minds and hearts and include people to come along with us. We need compelling leadership more than ever. We need leaders that listen, that are willing to say, I don't know, but let's go on the journey. And leaders that are coming to the table with that inclusive mindset. Let's widen the circle. Let's get clear on what we're trying to accomplish together. And then let's empower all of us to be ambassadors for that culture that we want to create. Those will be the teams. Again, team defined by however you're defining it, however you're listening to in your family, in your community, and certainly on the physical teams, whether that's a sports team, whether that's your team at work, your department, your entire company or organization. Those teams and those cultures are the ones that will thrive even in the midst of the challenges that we're facing. And so a few questions for us to ponder. Every week I want to leave us with a few things for us to ponder as listeners. How do you need to listen next? How do you need to listen next? And who are the people on your team, throughout your organization, in your life? How do you need to listen and have a strategy to listen next? Where do you need to share the I don't know? Who are the people and in what environments and with what groups do you need to be willing to say, I don't know, but let's go on the journey to find the solution? And how and who do you as a leader, again, depending on no matter what your role is, how do you and who do you need to include so that you can widen the circle and bring more into participating in wherever it is that you're going next? Remember, The best leaders, teams, and organizations create cultures that listen, that are able and vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, but let's go find solutions together, and are inclusive, are widening that circle. So let's go be the leaders that we know are needed in the world and the leaders that we have a chance to be with the people around us in order to set a temperature and create a culture that we all want to be a part of.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using. And share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to your organization, or you have a question or comment about this podcast, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.